Hello, I'm Wes Turnbull, and welcome to Freemasons The Inside Story. In this episode, we visit the Melbourne High School Lodge.
Hi, we're here today at the Victorian Weightlifting Stadium in Hawthorn. With us is Ange Kenos. Hi Ange, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Now Ange, as I said, we're at the Victorian Weightlifting Stadium. Can you tell us why we're here today?
Well, I've been a weightlifting coach and referee for 34 years. I qualified as an Olympic certified coach in 1990. I've been a national referee, can't remember now, 12 years maybe, or something like that. Coached at club, local, state, national competitions many times, and I love it. I absolutely love it.
And how exactly did you get into the sport of weightlifting?
Yeah, I was a brand new teacher in the school, walked in, deputy principal saw, young fresh blood, innocent, naive. Come and help me, you know. 3 months later, he gets a promotion to be principal. I'm, inverted commas, stuck with the kids on my own. But me being me, I had to do things. So I started to get accreditations, you know, different levels to make sure I was qualified, because once I started, I had to do it properly. And I've been doing it ever since. You know, I did a little bit of lifting at university, but it was, I suppose, being caught in my school days as a teacher that brought me back into the sport.
On top of coaching, you also ref the game.
Yes.
How did that come about?
Somebody asked me, would you like to referee? And I said, oh, if you think I'm good enough, it's hard, isn't it? And I was told, no, it wasn't. I had a go at what we call the club level. And then before long I knew it, I was a state referee, having sat an exam, and then a bit later on I was invited to go up to the national level. I'm now hopefully preparing for my international.
So it sounds like you've accomplished quite a bit within the field. What have been some of the highlights so far?
Oh gosh, in weightlifting, see, it depends on how you look at things. 1993 World Championships, I was Deputy Media Director. I wasn't actually in any of the specific areas. It was because I needed someone who knew weightlifting, because so many of the journos from overseas were motorsports, were tennis, didn't have a clue about the sport. I have coached athletes who later went on to the Olympics. I have met many great athletes, but to me, what gets me going is a competition where young kids are competing, kids who could be on television, who could be on Home and Away or any of those sort of shows. And you look at them and you think, oh, they're about to lose, they're about to drop the weight, they're struggling, they're not going to make it. And all of a sudden, pow, they get the weight up there. They do it perfectly. They've found that inner demon inside them, pulled that creature out, and it is one of the most amazing feelings, and that gets me coming back consistently, because I love seeing the kids know they've won for themselves.
And do you find that weightlifting is popular amongst young kids?
I find that if kids get involved in it, they like to stick with it. We've had some people in with the sport for many decades, starting out as very young school kids, and when you have some, recently we had a boy starting at 10. And his technique was actually amazing. But they may not all be into weightlifting, but they will still lift. They may not all be in competitive, you know, Commonwealth Games, Olympics, but once they get it under their skin, it's too hard to let go. Weightlifting is one of my personal interests, my community activities. To my family's regret, I'm a bit of a serial volunteer. So I've been involved with giving blood for 40 years, Justice of the Peace for 40 years, weightlifting for 34 years, not counting my mini lifting years at university. And just one of the things I like doing. It keeps me busy, keeps me active, it keeps me involved with the community. It means I'm not sitting at home watching television all day. But from a Freemason's point of view, it's about connecting with other people. It's about helping other people. It's about working in, as is Freemasonry, a field where we don't discriminate. Because one of the things, I've also refereed soccer, but in weightlifting, I've seen athletes from other countries help each other with coaching techniques. I've seen athletes supporting each other, even though if he wins, he beats me for the gold medal. That doesn't exist here. And again, that camaraderie that I have seen in weightlifting competitions, I never saw it as a soccer referee. And there's no violence here. The athletes don't go punch each other up. The coaches don't punch each other up. It's beautiful, and I can't think of a sport I have been involved with over the years, or where I have volunteered, that is probably closer to what I believe are the ideals of Freemasonry than weightlifting.
And so with all the volunteer work that you do, how do you find the time to fit Freemasonry into the life?
It's like my wife said to me many years ago, do you have a passport to visit home? Freemasonry is just a nice, relaxing outlet where I meet positive-minded men where, again, in no other organisation, aside from the sport here, have I found that there is no interest in what side of the Yarra River you come from. Doesn't matter if you're from Kew or from Footscray. It doesn't matter if you're a Christian or a Muslim or a Jew. It's irrelevant. And in Freemasonry, the wonderful men you meet, again, the feeling it gives you, you can't not go. I find that once you've experienced it, if I decided to leave it, I'm leaving away something that's now deeply rooted in my heart. I couldn't do it.
Now, Ange, I understand that you've been approached to be a speaker for the Freemasons speaker panel. Can you tell us a little bit about that and what's involved in this?
Yeah, well, I recently completed my certificate of Masonic studies, and I was extremely honoured to receive the pin and the certificate from the Most Worshipful Grand Master a few weeks ago. And I'm also the Lodge Education Officer of Lord Carrington Lodge. So I spoke with the education officers, who I see every Thursday because I volunteer in the library. And for those brethren who haven't been to the library, every Thursday, 9 till 2, please come along, say hello. I've spoken with the Lodge Education officers, and they suggested, would you like to present to other lodges around Melbourne? So, there's a pro forma, you fill out what you're comfortable with saying, what would you say, and I'll see what happens next. But I've delivered a few presentations to my lodge so far, and they've seemed to have gone down well, so I'm feeling comfortable.
Now, Ange, what sort of topics would you speak about as a speaker in lodges?
Well, for example, at Lodge in the last couple of months, I've spoken about charity and benevolence. And a couple of weeks ago, just about Masonic music. And that blew me away. I started out, as I was saying that night, I started out and I struggled to get a page and a half of notes. So I thought there's not much at all. Until a couple brethren helped me out, and all of a sudden that expanded to 5 pages. And I could have gone on more, because the amount of information we have just in the Grand Lodge Library on music is unbelievable. And it was fascinating learning some of the famous names, George M. Cohan, John Philip Sousa, as well as J.C. Bach and Mozart, etc., were all Freemasons. It boggles the mind that we are so broad, so wide, and yet we don't really acknowledge or recognise that amazing part of our history. We are everywhere, throughout history.
Wonderful. Thanks so much for joining us today, Ange.
Thank you again for having me. I do appreciate it.
Today, we're in the beautiful St Peter the Mariner Chapel at the Mission to Seafarers in the Docklands. Did you know about the Masonic connection to the chapel? The On the Seas lead-light window was created by Jerry Cummins in 1980. It was commissioned by the Sandringham Yacht Club in conjunction with the Maritime Masonic Lodge. The window highlights a Celtic cross, together with the square and compasses. In the background you can see the SS Canimbla, which was built in Belfast in 1935. It was the last large passenger ship built specifically for Australian owners. At the outbreak of World War II, the Canimbla was converted to an armed merchant cruiser. A beautiful piece of Masonic Melbourne in this wonderful chapel. Joining me today on Freemasons The Inside Story is Bill Reid, the Operations Manager here at the Mission to Seafarers. Bill, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much, Ben.
Bill, this is a beautiful place you have here. You're the Operations Manager.
That's right.
Can you tell us a little bit about the history of the Mission to Seafarers?
Yes, of course. We've been here, we've been in Australia since 1857. We're probably the second oldest mission to seafarers in the world, London being the first. And we've been in this particular building since 1917 when it was finished. We were granted a lease on the land, and the ladies of the Harbour Light Guild band together, raised the money and built this wonderful premises that you see here today.
Bill, can you tell us a little bit about the facility and what's it used for?
The facility is there to look after the welfare of seafarers. 60,000 seafarers visit Melbourne annually, and when they get to Melbourne they need a lift to the CBD. There are no trams or buses that go out to the port, as you know. When they first arrive in Melbourne, they probably don't have any Aussie dollars. They probably don't have a phone, so they can't phone a taxi, simple little things like that. So the most important thing that we offer them is a lift. We bring them to the centre and they're able to change money, and we will give them, or we'll sell them a SIM card so that they can then make calls to family and friends. At the centre we provide them with a Wi-Fi service. We got some computers that were donated to us by the Australian Welfare, and they can access that using Skype, and it's just magnificent for them, because if you imagine being out in the bush, there's no Wi-Fi out there, so it's the same when you're out at sea. There's no Wi-Fi. They get to Australia and they come to our centre and they can contact family and friends, and really we're a home away from home, and that's the service that we offer seafarers.
Bill, how can people help the mission and help the seafarers that come to the Port of Melbourne?
The best way is to volunteer, and you can do that by either contacting us directly at the mission, or you can go to our website and download the volunteers application form, or even just come on in and see us. We're open to the public and we'd love to see you, give you a little tour of the building. It's a magnificent building, and look forward to having you join us.
Bill Reid, thank you for your time on Freemasons The Inside Story.
Thank you, Ben.
Hi, we're here today with Peter Karabatsos. Hi Peter, thanks for joining us.
Anytime.
Peter, I understand that you're currently studying. Can you tell us a little bit about this and what it is that you're studying?
I'm currently studying at the University of Melbourne. I'm doing a science degree with a major in bioengineering systems.
And can you explain a little bit about what bioengineering systems actually is?
Bioengineering systems is a fairly broad field of study, and it essentially applies the disciplines of other sciences and engineering areas into one large group, which focuses mainly on increasing quality of life, addressing health issues, and potentially using biologically inspired solutions to current problems. Examples of these could be biomechanics, which effectively studies the human body and tries to find out better ways to prevent injury, treat injuries when we have them, increase the performance of athletes, provide different training methods, and knowing how to treat diseases such as arthritis and other things. Biosignals, which models the system's responses, so the input-output signals, feedback responses, and all that, so that you can use computer science to model the way the body can work, and potentially predict how a drug would react in a human body before having to do clinical trials. Or my personal favourite, which is genetic engineering, where on its own it has huge potential. Right now we have bacteria that can produce human insulin, so that's used to treat diabetes. And so we've already got bacteria that produce human insulin, so that treats diabetes there. And we've modified rice grains that contain more iron, which addresses the fact that the human population overall has 30% iron deficiency. Most of those people are in third world countries where just what is grown in general doesn't contain enough iron. And we've been able to introduce rice grains that absorb more iron from the soil and is therefore present in the food sources.
And what do you hope to do after this degree is finished?
After the degree, I hope to complete my Masters of Biomedical Engineering Systems, which I think has a lot of potential. I want to ultimately focus on genetics, which is what, as I said, my personal favourite, and that would be more controlling the way diseases are expressed and preventing them, or creating a cure to a particular virus on the spot.
And so what is it about science, and specifically bioengineering, that appealed to you?
Well, I've always been a maths and science geek, so all through high school I was doing the maths and science subjects. This is mainly because I'm quite curious about how the world works, and I've always been fascinated in how human survival has really relied on our ability to understand how the world works and manipulate it to suit us better. Bioengineering systems in particular is more because that's where the most progress can be made in terms of pushing through the boundaries. A lot of current knowledge is in all the other fields. We know a lot about chemistry and physics and biology, genetic engineering and biological systems. They haven't yet gone to the full maturity. There's still a lot of groundwork to be done, and the more we will know about all this field will eventually lead to better use of time and resources and better cures.
You mentioned that an aspect of bioengineering that you love is that it's almost in its infancy stage. You take something as new as that and something as ancient and historical as Freemasonry. Would you agree or disagree? Do these two have anything in common?
I disagree. I believe that Freemasonry and sciences do have a lot in common, although fundamentally they might seem different because one's more historical and spiritual and is there for guidance, while the other is just trying to find out as much as we can. They both aim to help the community, which is, that's a link there. And in fact, in one of the rituals, Freemasonry is actually explicitly recommended studying the liberal arts and sciences. So there is a push to help the community, both of them.
And why do you think Freemasonry explicitly recommends and promotes the study of liberal arts and sciences?
As it's a very historic thing. Hundreds of years ago, when it was around then, studying science wasn't something that you do as a student. It would be something you do if you had a lot of money and had the time to do so. The average person did not have the time or the resources to understand the world better. They just had to work their job and do that. So back then, it was promoted to have in any of your free time to learn as much as you can. It benefits yourself, your community, and also Freemasonry itself. The more members it has understand things to a greater degree, the better it is for Freemasonry, as well as the fact that individual growth, learning never hurt anybody.
You joined Freemasonry at the age of 18. What was it that appealed to you at such a young age?
Well, my father's a Freemason, but he's never push me to become one. I've got a younger brother who's almost 20 and he hasn't joined. What it was for me was that I was coming to the fundraisers, the social functions from an early teenager, and I saw the way that everyone was. I saw the men who were here, I saw the way their families were, I saw the goals they had, and I thought that was normal, to be driven to want to have a good life. Whereas I then went to high school and realised the situation some of my friends were in, the parents they had, and how it wasn't always ideal. And I realised there must be something about Freemasonry that either attracted the sort of men who had the goals and aspirations that I did, or something about Freemasonry that guided them towards them, which I wanted to become a part of.
And what would you say to young gentlemen thinking about joining Freemasonry today?
Find out as much as you can about it. Go to a meeting and speak to the members before or afterwards to find out what it is, what it means to them. Research online about the history, what they're doing now, what sort of charities they're supporting or what they're doing in the community, and speak to people who you know are either members or a family of members and see why they take the time out of their busy schedule to go and spend time with other Masons to be part of this fraternity.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for joining us today, Peter.
Thank you, anytime.
Thanks for joining us. To find out more about Freemasonry, visit the Freemasons Victoria website at www.freemasonsvic.net.au or phone us on 1800 Freemason. You can also find us on Facebook, Twitter, Flickr, LinkedIn and Google+. We'll see you next week.